When I think about my favorite comfort foods, I usually think of like loaded pizzas, massive burgers, creamy pastas. So that's what we're gonna be making today. Because comfort is the theme of today's video, all of these recipes are gonna be really rich, dense, warm, delicious, everything you think of when you think of the word cozy. And I wanna take a brief moment to thank Audible for partnering with us on today's video. We're gonna chat more about them at the end. For now, let's get started on making some comfort foods. First up, we're making a Mexican-inspired pizza loaded with all the good stuff. So to begin, we're gonna prep the pizza toppings by chopping 1 red bell pepper into little pieces. We're then gonna thinly slice about half of a red onion and cut about 10 cherry tomatoes in half. To a small pan on high heat, add a little bit of vegetable oil and add to it 3 cloves of crushed garlic. After a couple of minutes of stirring it around, when the garlic is lightly golden, you can then add in some vegan mock ground beef, about 200 grams worth, 2 tablespoons of a taco seasoning mix, and cook this for about 30 seconds to let the spices bloom. Then we're gonna add in a couple tablespoons of water and let it cook for another minute or 2. Meanwhile, we're gonna get the base of the pizza ready. Here we're using some pre-made pizza crusts. Ours were made from a combination of cauliflower and regular flour. We're gonna drizzle on a little bit of olive oil, brush it over the crust, and then add 2.5 tablespoons of tomato paste to each of the crusts, spreading it out over the surface evenly. At this point, we can divide the vegan ground beef mixture between the 2 pizzas and spread it out evenly. And now comes the best part, adding your favorite toppings. So to ours, we added the red bell peppers, the thinly sliced onions, some corn that we just drained and rinsed from a jar, the cherry tomatoes, and here we're adding some pickled jalapenos as well, which in my opinion is the best topping of them all. Then pop it into the oven at 200 Celsius or 390 Fahrenheit for about 12 to 15 minutes or until the crust is lightly golden. While this cooks, we're gonna make the sauce that we're gonna be topping the pizzas with. So we're gonna first chop up a bit of fresh cilantro, and to a bowl, add a 1/4 cup of unsweetened plant-based yogurt, plus 2 tablespoons of a vegan mayonnaise, plus 2 tablespoons worth of the chopped cilantro, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then mix it all to combine. And I know that for some people, the combination of plant-based yogurt and vegan mayo might seem peculiar, but trust me, it really works for this one. So when the pizzas are done, take them out of the oven and then top them with some thinly sliced green onions if you'd like. And now you can dollop on some of that yogurt and cilantro mixture. And then you can add some sliced avocado on the pizza if avocado is your thing as much as it is for us. With its crunchy crust, the savory tomato sauce, and whatever toppings you're in the mood for, I feel like pizza is humankind's agreed upon favorite food. It's also a really simple and comforting recipe that's also really easy to share with others if you're in the mood to share, that is. Next up, we're making some pretty massive veggie burgers. To a large bowl, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds plus 6 tablespoons of water. This is gonna serve as an egg does in traditional burger patty recipes. So just give it a mix, set it aside. Then we're gonna dice up 2 red onions and finely mince 2 cloves of garlic. We're gonna add this to a pan on high heat with a little bit of oil and saute it for about 5 minutes or so. You can also add a splash of water as needed to deglaze the pan. While this cooks, we're gonna chop up about 200 grams worth of mushrooms. You wanna cut it up into small little pieces, and you can also finely dice a 1/3 cup of walnuts as well, which is gonna give these patties a lovely taste and texture. Returning to the pan, you might notice by now that the onions have gotten translucent, maybe even a little bit lightly golden in color. So now we're gonna add the mushrooms and walnuts to it, give it a stir, and let it sit and cook for about 8 minutes. By now, you'll notice that the flax seeds have completely gelled, which is what's gonna help hold these burger patties together really nicely. So to the same bowl, we're now gonna add 1.5 cups of cooked lentils that we just drained and rinsed from a jar. And using an immersion blender, potato masher, or just using a fork, you wanna mash it to the best of your ability. The more mashed that it is, the better these patties are gonna stick together. Going back to the mushrooms, you'll see that they've reduced a lot in volume since the moisture has evaporated. And now we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of sodium-reduced soy sauce, 1/2 tablespoon of ground cumin, and a teaspoon of ground coriander. And then you wanna let this cook for another couple minutes until all of the moisture has evaporated. When you're ready, transfer this mixture to the bowl along with 1 cup of cooked rice. Here we're using a mix of brown rice and wild rice. If you're ever looking for the perfect way to use up leftover rice, then this recipe is it. Plus, we're gonna add a cup of store-bought or homemade breadcrumbs, a tablespoon of nutritional yeast in there as well, a tablespoon of ketchup, and some freshly cracked black pepper. And give it a mix, and it's best to just kind of get in there with your hands. Just fold it, combine it until it's all one uniform consistency. The mixture, you'll see, holds together really nicely, so go ahead and mold it into perfect little burger-like shapes. Now to a pan on medium-high heat, you want to add a little bit of vegetable oil and then cook the patties for about 3 to 5 minutes on each side or until they've turned a golden brown. Then give it a flip. You can add a bit more oil if you need to and cook it for another 3 to 5 minutes on the other side. Meanwhile, we're gonna whip up a 30-second sriracha mayo sauce. This is my favorite. So to a bowl, we're just gonna add a 1/4 cup of vegan mayonnaise plus 2 tablespoons of sriracha hot sauce. Give it a stir, and that is it. You can use this as a dip for your fries or spread it onto the burger buns. And when the patties are cooked, it's time to assemble the burger. Just top it with all of your favorites. Here we're using some freshly sliced avocado, a huge tomato slice on there, plus some fresh arugula. I feel like burgers are and always have been one of the best kinds of comfort foods out there, and this burger does not disappoint. It's hefty, it's hearty, it's filling. I don't know what other synonyms to use. Essentially, it's huge and it's gonna fill you right up. And if it's possible, just try not to skip on that sriracha mayo. It seriously takes this to the next level. One last thing about this recipe, these burger patties freeze incredibly well. Just put them in an airtight container, separate the individual pieces with some parchment paper, and when you're in the need of a 5-minute dinner, just thaw it up and fry it up and you're good to go. For the final recipe, we're gonna end it strong here with the ultimate of all comfort foods, mac and cheese, vegan style. So to a large pot of boiling salted water, we're gonna add 4 cups of any pasta of your choosing. Here we're using shell pasta, and you're gonna wanna cook it until it's al dente. Then we're gonna peel and chop 2 medium sweet potatoes into small 1 centimeter sized chunks. Do the same thing with 3 medium-sized yellow potatoes. We're going to steam these potatoes in a pot until they're cooked through, which is gonna take about 15 minutes. And if you don't have a steamer, you can just cook them in a bit of water and just make sure to drain off the excess water once it's cooked. Now it's time for us to make a roux. So to a large pot on medium-high heat, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil and 3 cloves of crushed garlic. You wanna cook it for about a minute until the garlic is nice and lightly golden. Then we're gonna add in a 1/4 cup of flour and mix this continuously for about 1 minute until the mixture gets a bit bubbly and becomes lightly golden in color. Then you're gonna keep mixing continuously so it doesn't burn, and in a thin and continuous stream, we're gonna stir in 3 cups of unsweetened plant-based milk. The flour in this recipe is what helps the sauce kind of thicken up, so we're gonna let that sit and cook for another minute. Meanwhile, we're gonna drain the pasta once it's al dente and set it aside. And when the potatoes are cooked, we're gonna add it to the milk mixture. You can reduce the heat here too so things don't burn. I'm gonna also add in 1/2 cup of raw cashews that were soaked overnight. We're gonna also add in 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which is what's gonna give this sauce a cheesy flavor. We're gonna add in a tablespoon of soy sauce. We'll squeeze in the juice from 1 full lemon, and we're gonna add in a tablespoon of dried rosemary, a teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. Then give it all a stir, and using an immersion blender, we're gonna blend this up until it's all one uniform creamy consistency. You're gonna be left with this super delicious, thick and creamy vegan cheese sauce. So to the sauce, we're gonna add a whole head of broccoli florets because we need some greens in there. Let it cook for a couple minutes so that the broccoli softens, and then we're gonna add in the pasta. The reason I like using shell pasta for this is that each little pasta is kind of like a spoon. It just scoops up the sauce inside of it. So whenever you're ready, you want to remove this from the heat and then generously serve it for yourself in some bowls. The pasta is delicious enjoyed just as is, but if you feel like making it a little bit extra, if you've got some time, you can make this breadcrumb mixture to sprinkle on top. It's so good. So to make it, we're just gonna add a couple of teaspoons of vegetable oil to a small pot on high heat. Crush in 2 cloves of garlic. Once it's golden, you can add in 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs and cook it for another couple minutes until those breadcrumbs get nice and crispy. Then remove it from the heat and you can add it to the top of your mac and cheese. You can also add some fresh parsley if you'd like. Hot sauce on the side goes incredibly well with this dish too, by the way. I hope this video has given you some new ideas on how to enjoy some of the comfort food classics. If you did enjoy today's video, it always means a lot when you take a moment to give it a thumbs up. And if you get a chance to make any of the recipes, tag us on Instagram. It's always a lot of fun for us to see. And thank you again to Audible for partnering with us on today's video. You guys already know I have been using Audible for years to listen to all of my favorite audiobooks when I'm in commute or just while I'm cooking. And recently I discovered that they have JRR Tolkien's The Hobbit on Audible. I can't even begin to tell you how excited that made me. It's whimsical, it's magical, it brings back all of these cozy childhood memories, because you might not know this, but I had a serious obsession with Lord of the Rings when I was a kid, and the narrator does such a good job at making you feel immersed in the enchanting world of hobbits and wizards. So if you think you might be interested in giving this book a listen, you can get it for free or any other audiobook that you'd like, plus a 30-day free membership by visiting audible.com/pickuplimes or check out the link in the description box below. And Audible members now get 1 free audiobook per month plus 2 free Audible originals. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Just a heads up, we've got loads of other comfort recipes coming your way, things like warm drinks and soups. We've been whipping up a storm, really excited to share. Thanks a lot for watching. Pickup Limes signing off, and we'll see you in the next video.